According to data from the liquefied petroleum gas price watch released by the National Bureau of Statistics in November 2022, the data shows that on a year-on-year basis, refilling a 5 kg cylinder rose by 70% from 2,624 naira in October 2021, while refilling a 12.5 kg cylinder rose by 51.40% in from October 2021. For more now in the gas market, we have Mr. Norbert Shalsuk, lead partner, Echo City Advisory, join us right here in the studio. Good morning. Great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
And speaking from experience, you know, every time I have to refill my gas, it's a pain, really. And I know it's going to finish very soon. And, festivities are here. Over 100% increase. What's happening?
Okay, Ladi, thank you very much. I've been speaking over the past 2 days about this, and I know I've gone a bit technical yesterday, but I want to break it down so everybody can understand, right? And so, yes, the price of cooking gas at the moment is over 10,000. You know, your statistics is last year 6,000. Now it's about 10,000 to 12,000. That's about 30% of our minimum wage. So let me break it down to all the activities that have happened, right? Over the past 2 years, the Nigerian customs sent, basically bills to traders, notifying them of back taxes on cooking gas that they've imported, right? And this runs into billions of naira. Now, that clearly would bankrupt these traders, and so they stopped importing. That led to a period of scarcity, and of course, where there's scarcity, the price of a commodity would go up. And then later on in the year, of course, you had the devaluation of a naira, which further, worsened the situation, and you are now left with the sustained period over 1 year of high cooking gas prices. And so clearly this will lead to a sort of a deceleration of the growth in the market, because of course, when there's a sustained period of high prices, people will look for alternatives. And when people move away from the commodity, you now begin to have a destruction of demand, right? And so the question I want to ask is, LPG, or would I say cooking gas, to break it down in a parlance that everybody understands, it's not a luxury commodity, right? LPG is used by every home, right? You just mentioned about, you have cooking gas, you're worried about it getting finished. Yeah. I use cooking gas in my home, right? Then you have schools use cooking gas in their kitchens. Restaurants, hotels, and then let's break it down to small-scale businesses. We did a survey some time back last year and on use of LPG in Abuja, and we realized that the people that use LPG the most are Meshai on the road, yes, right? Mama Put. So these are all people that used to use firewood for their business. Now they've transitioned over the past 5 to 10 years.
Which is a good thing.
Yes, which is to LPG. And then now they have to deal with a high cost of the commodity, which directly impacts their business, right? We have to look at other people, such as people in the villages that are beginning to, government is trying to reach out to use a commodity. So probably there are some rural areas as well that have adopted LPG as a commodity. Now, if this is a product that's been used by every Nigerian, whether a business owner or homeowner, this is more or less an essential commodity, right? So why are you taxing an essential commodity? I understand where you're taxing luxury items and discouraging consumption in that item. Why now are you taxing?
Is it that the tax is too high, or?
Basically, LPG equipment, for instance, there's a 70% tax on all the equipment for LPG. Right? If you're buying a tank or you're buying, equipment to install an LPG facility, it's about 76% or thereabout in terms of taxes, right? If you're importing, like Nigerian customs now sending the bill to the traders, they're taxing that commodity in terms of import duty coming in into the country and reminding them.
Because these taxes are legal.
Yes, they're legal, but I'm saying, if you're taxing, a commodity like cooking gas, you're basically, discouraging people from using it. Like we've seen the impact now where the prices have gone up to 10,000, 12,000, and have remained there for such a long time. Now, you have to question the rationale of government, in terms of taxing this commodity that's being used by everybody instead of encouraging people to transition from, what they're used to, which is firewood. And, come to talk about firewood, right? Nigeria is part of the climate accord in Paris that was signed 2015. And every year we send what we call the Nationally Determined Commitment, which is NDC, which reaffirms our commitment to end climate change. Right? And part of that NDC commitment is to, one, improve energy efficiency by introducing Nigerian homes to more efficient fuels, right? So which means you want to introduce cooking gas as against kerosene or firewood. And also you want to introduce Nigerian vehicles to natural gas, right? And so all of this, right, are part of the things we've committed to. And also, most importantly, we've said we're going to try and end deforestation. Because, of course, the trees produce all of the oxygen, and the more you cut them down, the less you have, the replacement of oxygen into the atmosphere and so on. And so when you now increase, right, by, taxing this commodity, increasing taxes on LPG, you're basically discouraging the use of our commodity. And what we've seen over the past 1 year, as the sustained prices of LPG have remained over the year, people are now going back to firewood.
So we're going back to the dirty alternative.
Exactly, right? And so that is basically running counter to the general policy of government to move towards more efficient fuels. And, part of energy transition in Africa, one of the biggest things you're dealing with is energy poverty. Because first of all, yes, Europe and the US and all of that are moving towards cleaner fuels, right? Which is their own energy transition initiative, right? But for Africa, the first thing is that we don't even have access to energy because we're energy poor. We are less than, so if you're looking at energy access, Africa, sub-Saharan Africa is about 186 kilowatt hours for a whole year per person. For Nigeria, it's about 200. If you compare that to the US, you're about 16,000 kilowatts in energy equivalent. If you're looking at Europe, it's about 6,500. So you're looking at, we're at 1%, in terms of access to energy per person, compared to all of these developed nations. So for me, we're dealing with energy poverty. The cost of LPG is about 30% of our minimum wage. And now you're still increasing that by discouraging the sector with all of this taxation and so on. And to talk about something else, right? This will get worse, right? Because currently the biggest supplier of the product in the market is Nigeria LNG. So there was a scheme that started in 2007 whereby Nigeria LNG committed some of its volume of LPG, production of LPG to the local market. And that scheme has been ongoing for the past 15 years. When NLNG intervened, on the back of a policy by the government, the market was about 50,000 thereabout per annum consumption for a whole country, right? Because before then, the 3 refineries in the country were designed to produce and meet all of the local requirement of LPG. And then Nigeria was exporting all the LPG they were producing, so we were a net exporter of LPG. And then when the NLNG, Mobil, Exo, Chevron, FSO were set up, they now also were designed to export LPG. And so then over a long period of time, the refinery stopped working, right? And so that, design, to meet local demand for LPG basically failed. And so now you have to look at how do you now get LPG in. So traders now had to start importing LPG, right? And
so
then,
so basically the value chain right now is being impacted, heavily. So what do you think, can be done to, bring these prices down realistically in the short to long term? Will taking away those taxes, will it bring the prices down?
Yes, it will help, right? So this is one way to do it, right? By taking away the taxes, right? And then, but secondly, also you have to, because availability is one thing. And the NLNG program has addressed that availability by making LPG available, right? That has been threatened at the moment by the move of NNPC to take over that domestic LPG scheme, right? So they want to take all of the volumes that are coming from LNG, which means all the traders that have set up all of the investments in terms of logistics, coastal storages, and also downstream their retail supply chain, all of them now have to now go look for the LPG elsewhere, right? And NLNG, at the beginning of this year, committed all of its volumes to the local market. If NMPC takes its own 49%, every other shareholder in LNG will say, okay, fine, we will also take ours and we're free to export it, right? So that now truncates the supply and the system that has been so efficient over the past 15 years and has, driven the market from the 50,000 to about 1.3 million or thereabout last year, right? And so this supply disruption as well would also worsen the situation. And so apart from reducing taxes, government should ensure the current system stays as it is, right? The supply chain that they've established between Nigeria LNG, the off-takers, and also the value chain that's been created, along the way, should remain as it is. If a system is not broken, why do you want to fix it? Why do you want to disrupt it? So just leave it as it is. What they should focus on is also making more LPG available in the hinterland, right? Nigeria has a lot of gas. We're about 206 trillion cubic feet of gas in reserves, and that's proven reserves, right? Another 600 in probable reserves, and so Nigeria has a lot of gas. Nigeria is more a gas nation than an oil nation. And so part of a strategy going forward should be, one, when you now have to build gas process plants in the hinterland, you now produce more LPG. And when you make more LPG available, of course, you help to reduce the prices. Then moving on to other issues, which is accessibility, right? If you want to convince a woman in the village or anybody that wants to move from what they're used to, firewood or kerosene, to LPG, then you have to provide cylinders, right? And so you now need to give them access to that commodity by providing the medium for which they can now use to fill that commodity, which is now cylinders. So when you now provide more cylinders, then you can have more people using LPG, which improves the utilization, in the market, and then reduces the price of the commodity in the long run. Then moving on to other things, of course, a national policy, for instance, for pricing of LPG in Naira and also payment in Naira also can help. Right, but we have to start.
When you say pricing policy, do we start fixing the prices?
No. So basically, at the moment, it's something I don't like to dwell on because it's a bit technical. LPG currently, as I said, Nigeria LNG supplies most of the LPG into the country. Then, of course, you have the Mobile facility in Oso that produces also about 1 million tons. And then you have the Chevron FSO, which produces about 400,000 or about 500,000 tons per annum. So most of the LPG comes from there, right? Then some of it comes from Angola and then European sources and so on. And so the LPG that comes from Nigeria LNG, of course, is priced in dollars and it's indexed to the US market. Also the one coming from Chevron and also Mobile, they're all indexed to the European markets, right? And so you have to raise an LLC, look for dollar and all of that. Go pick your cargo and ship it. And then you have the handling cost in terms of the shipping cost. You have to also have handling costs in terms of logistics at the ports. Then you have to store the LPG before you now put it in a truck and take it to your bottling plant. So you see all of that handling costs because you have to re-import LPG. Even though we're producing LPG in Nigeria, you have to now re-import it, right? Because those facilities were not designed to meet the local market. And so there are no truck loading facilities. This is one of the reasons why I'm saying you now need to look into the hinterland to develop process plants. There are some process plants that are coming up that might have LPG available. Like the one developed by Seplat PLC, for instance. Seplat Energy is building the Ano gas plant in the east that will produce about 300 million scoops of gas, process about 300 million scoops of gas per day and make about maybe 250,000 tons of LPG available. They're also doing other gas process plants. You have Panocean also coming up with their own LPG program. And so much. So there are many gas process plants in the hinterland that will make LPG available where people can just take one truck, go to the LPG process plant and buy LPG. So like when you begin to break that bulk and make it more accessible and more available, then you begin to deal with that issue of LPG. Then moving on to other items, you can now also introduce LPG utilization for power, LPG utilization for vehicles, because autogas, for instance, in Turkey has taken off. Autogas also in South Korea has taken off, and China as well, right? So these are all countries that have implemented LPG utilization for vehicles. And so when you now introduce all of those various applications of LPG, it improves and grows the market. We're about 1.3 million, as I said last year, right? And the market now is slowing down because of the high price. But if government is able to deal with the issue of taxes, if government is able to deal with the issue of accessibility by providing cylinders, and if government is also able to implement autogas, right, as part of its gas expansion program, because right now the government is trying to introduce CNG to vehicles, they can now make the alternative also to use LPG. When that happens, you now grow the market from 1.3 to where it is to about 3 to 5 million tons. And so the market becomes, you know...
and obviously we're in the decade, you know, of the
gas. Exactly.
And obviously we've seen a lot of countries now making pledges for net zero going forward. So
exactly.
making clean energy affordable is paramount right now.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. That was Norbert Shialsuk, lead partner, Echo City Advisory. Thank you so much for giving us your perspective today.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.